So basically, gut issues got progressively worse. So bloating, indigestion, all of that. For the first time in my life, I started experiencing anxiety, which I'd never experienced before.
How were your vitamin levels? Do you remember back then?
No, I
You
wasn't like
weren't.
actively
No.
monitoring. I was mainly manipulating what I was eating.
Sure.
But gut issues were a huge part of it. And then my appetite was just ravenous, so I would track my calories, and regardless of, I had a very high protein diet, and I was also incorporating like the whole food fats and clearly like a bunch of carbohydrates. And I could eat, 5,000 calories, and my stomach was just distended, and I was still hungry. So I realized, like, for the first time in my life, I was never a big eater, and I realized something was severely off with that. So I'm one season into doing this Power Rangers show, and I'm still vegan. I'm still whole food, plant-based vegan. I'm meal prepping. I'm bringing.
Sapien. Sapien.
What is the Sapien lifestyle?
Mind, body, and spirits.
Good morning, everyone. Well, it's morning for us. Dr. Gary, how's it going?
Good morning, everyone. I'm excited to be here. Excited to share our new episode with everyone because it's a good one, man.
Yeah, William Shewfelt. So I've known him for a while. I went to a meetup with Chris Bell and Sean Baker and William a long time ago, and we kind of bonded and been hanging out here and there and doing some collaborations on YouTube even. Just a great guy, just super positive, super smart. And he's kind of going down this kind of more carnivore route. And he wrote a book with Dr. Ted Naiman, who is amazing. So yeah, it was kind of cool that you just kind of got to know him all of a sudden when he showed up.
I mean, what a clever guy to see, sort of a really brilliant guy in Ted Naiman, and have the kind of foresight to connect with him and sort of bottle up what he's putting together in all of his content and make a book. I know that. Yeah, I didn't know him. I kind of was like, hey, this guy is the Red Power Ranger, and he's really, really fit, and he's really, really smart. And that's sort of what I went into it with. And man, he was so much more than that. He's got a really great insight on nutrition, and he shares our perspective on health, specifically, from the ancestral perspective and trying to feel your body and doing what's right. And I really learned a lot, especially when we got into some of the conversations about exercise and movement and his sort of approach to that, which I didn't expect. And he really had a lot of insight to share with us. It was really informative.
And I like it too that he uses some carbs. He's like, yeah, I eat sweet potatoes at night. I mean, he doesn't have some dogma around it,
Right.
He's just like,
Right.
yeah, I tested it and I started gaining more muscle mass, and it's like targeted around just my night workout. And I'm like, great. Don't be ashamed. He seemed like he was a little bashful to share it.
He was. It was also, you guys will hear when I'm trying to talk to him, I'm trying to get him to say, oh yeah, I follow a Sapien diet, because really what he's describing is a Sapien diet and lifestyle. He's very much in tune with
it's the same kind of thing.
Yeah, it was really kind of fun to hear the same perspective shared in a different angle. And the PE diet, their book is, I'm really excited to get into it. I just got the digital copy, and I'm really gonna dive in. Hopefully this weekend I'll find some time. But
yeah, everyone just buy it. It's worth it. Share it with your friends. I can't recommend it enough. And before we start, Gary got fired up last night on the phone, and I said, let's save it for the podcast. Man. So what happened?
Look, I mean, every day me and Brian talk, I meet new people. I learn something new about, this world of healthcare, and simultaneously I'm seeing patients every day at Evolve. A lot of you guys know, my company is called Evolve Healthcare, and it's a medical office in Los Angeles. I see patients that, actually, I also want to shout out to everyone. I'm getting so much love, so many new patients that are finding me through this podcast, through this sort of community. And anyway, it's really exciting because I get a mix of patients, some that are really excited to hear what I have to say and are coming because they've either heard the Sapien podcast or PQmin or seen me in one of the other podcasts I've been on, and sort of come to support me and to support Brian and our whole message and become a patient. then I also have patients that are just regular people. They have health insurance. They found me online. I'm local to them in Woodland Hills or in the Valley. And so this is what got me fired up, guys. I was trained in Western medicine school of thought. And one of the things that Dr. Kelly Brogan, she's a really inspiring physician. She has a new book out called Own Yourself. She's a holistic psychiatrist. She practiced kind of classical Western medicine for many, many years. And then over the last few years went through her own transition to become a holistic practitioner, sort of what I do. I takes Western medicine thought, an alternative sort of approach, and provides a more modern holistic healthcare for her patients. Anyhow, I've been reading her new book, and she's got into my head about this idea of the current dogma in psychiatric care. And it's this idea that depression, anxiety, these mood disorders are somehow an inherent problem with your brain, that there's something wrong with you, that you have some kind of chemical imbalance, and that this is the problem, and that we have to use these psychotropic drugs like antidepressants, SSRIs, to fix the chemical imbalance. And she makes a strong argument, and I cannot agree with her more, that it's just way more complicated than that, that people don't have something inherently wrong with them, and that through the use of lifestyle changes, nutrition at the heart of it, but everything from exercise, mindfulness, sun exposure, all the stuff we talk about, is how we can heal our brains and how we can fix whatever kind of mood imbalance or disorder, whatever word you want to use, exists. And I had this young girl, a patient of mine, come, and, we'd been working on diet. She's got some really elevated blood sugar. She's actually pre-diabetic. She's got extremely low vitamin D, and we've been working on that and kind of trying to convince her to think about it more as a hormone and that it really affects your mood. And she's, been pretty reluctant to pursue this sort of, lifestyle approach to her care. She showed up, and she had recently seen a psychiatrist who basically told her exactly what Dr. Brogan is outlining, that, hey, there is something fundamentally wrong with you, that you have some chemical imbalance in your brain, and that the only way we can help you is to give you these drugs. She never addressed her hormone imbalances. She never addressed her metabolic health. She basically gave her a forever diagnosis of depression and said, this is the only way to heal it, is these drugs. And I got so fired up. It just really triggered me, because here in front of me is a young, healthy girl who does not spend any time in the sun, who eats a very, very high carbohydrate processed food diet. She is not exercising. She's not doing the things that make us happy as human beings.
So healthy was in quotes.
Right. Well, exactly. I mean, everyone has a different definition of this.
Was a young, could be, should be healthy girl, or outwardly looks decently healthy, yet not healthy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I guess what you're implying is that she has some metabolic derangements for sure. She's got some hormone, but I look at that as a person
she's pretty healthy. Well,
yeah, it's just someone who needs a little bit of TLC, someone who needs to optimize their lifestyle, change their diet, and things can get dramatically better. But instead, the current dogma of Western medicine is that we're going to put you on a psychotropic drug and give you this diagnosis that you're now clinically depressed. And I can see it in her eyes. It defeated her. She became, as the medication kicked in, her feelings were numbed, which is what these drugs do. They numb you. And she felt better. She wasn't quite as emotional, but she wasn't feeling well. She wasn't healing her problems. She was putting a Band-Aid on it.
Suppressing,
And she accepted it as, this is it. This is okay. This is baseline. This is how we take care of this problem in America. And I couldn't let that happen. Like, I felt inspired. I felt it was my duty to step in and say, no, we can do way better. You do not have to take these drugs for the rest of your life. You do not have to numb your feelings. We just need to do some work. We need to do some real lifestyle changes. We need to really make some changes in how you live your life every day. So we had a pretty long conversation. I reviewed a lot of the things I'd already taught her, and I can see in her eyes a glimmer of hope. And it was hope that she wasn't going to be depressed forever, that she didn't have some genetic predisposition to depression that she was going to pass down to her kids, or that she would have to be on these drugs forever. And that was sort of what was sold to her. And, it took a little bit of, creative conversation, but I think I was able to really get through to her that, hey, we just need to change how we're operating, and we're going to get better. And we're going to use this drug as maybe a bridge to healing, to feeling completely better without the use of these drugs, and instead using, natural things to heal our brain.
That's
and
great.
It was just, yesterday I think in the heat of the day, I was very passionate and emotional and almost sad for her. But it motivated me to spend the extra time with her, which I did. And, it caused a little chaos with my schedule, which is okay because you can never predict what your day looks like. But, if I could intervene on a 31-year-old girl and convince her and show her a path to healing and health that is free of these numbing, sedating, confusing medications. And I mean, I don't know. To me, it was the most powerful sort of thing I can do as a primary care doctor is step in when things are just getting sort of wrapped up in this Western medicine world and try to free people from that experience, And I'm really excited. We're going to have a follow-up visit in the next few weeks. We got her on really high dose vitamin D supplementation because her vitamin D was completely in the toilet, which I'm sure is contributing to her emotional lability. And, we're going to address her diet. We've got her on an exercise program, which we went into at length, which I think also was kind of triggered by my talk with William and how we can give people different strategies to work on their body. And I'm just really excited that young people are coming to my office, open-minded. Older people are coming to my office ready to try something different. And it's a really exciting time at Evolve. It's a really exciting time at Sapien as we're growing and the community is embracing us. And, I'm going to keep sharing these stories with everyone because it's one thing to talk about books and people in our community, but it's another thing to bring people from the outside into our fold and share all this great information and this lifestyle that we're developing. And it's just, it's really fun. And I want everyone to know that it's real. Like there's lots of people out there struggling, and every single person in this community has a voice, and we all need to use it to try to help people in a meaningful way.
I love it. It's real. Yeah, I love
It's
sharing.
real.
I love sharing these stories too because you don't always hear them, and you don't always get this insight from the doctor. And a lot of times, even some of the people in our community don't even practice as a normal doctor anymore. They just do consults, with people virtually. So they never have these kind of real world conventional medicine fail type of things going on. And
it also, let me just throw a little plug in. Everyone, if you're listening and you're interested and you want to have an experience with me, Brian, or both of us and learn, one-on-one about what we're up to, we've formally launched our Sapien Diet and Lifestyle Program. You could check it out on sapien.org/programs. You could get connected with us. Right now we're kind of doing it piecemeal. We're working out with each patient how we're going to work with them, but we are putting together a technology to help kind of streamline that process and allow everyone access to us to work with us, get consultations, get counseling, and get further guidance. So if you're interested, we're here, you guys, and we're excited to help you.
Absolutely. Yeah, it can be done remotely. And I was going to say, I need to get ready and just head into the office.
We got
right now. And all.
You got a couple of patients this afternoon, don't you?
Yeah, for sure. I got to get there. So let's start the show. Sapien.org. You can find out a lot about us. Sapien.org/programs is where you'll find the programs. And I guess you can check out the movie foodlies.org and
check it out.
Dale.org where you can get some meat. Let's get this going.
Let's do it. William Shewfelt, everyone.
Here we are, live at Evolve Healthcare for the Sapien podcast. We got Dr. Gary.
Hey everyone, how you doing? Excited to be here.
And our guest, William Shewfelt.
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
All right, let's do this. Yeah, William is an actor. He was in the Power Rangers. He's a health personality, I guess we'll call him. Yeah,
Influencer.
He's an influencer. He's a model. Ooh, he's an author now, which is why I wanted to talk to him. Been wanting to talk to you for a while. We actually did a little YouTube videos a while back.
Yeah.
But now that your book's done with Dr. Ted Naiman, it's time to do a podcast.
Yes.
Can I intervene and ask which Power Ranger were you?
I was the red one.
The Red Ranger.
That guy was the best. No.
From the red's my favorite color, but the Red Ranger to an author, that is amazing.
It's quite the evolution. I mean, I think for people that don't know who I am and who are listening to this right now, they're thinking influencer and Power Ranger, skip. So give it 10 minutes, guys. We'll get interesting here.
We'll give you a nice intro before this. And let's dive in. No, because I probably did think that when I first met you. I was like, whatever. Like, he's strong and stuff. He looks good, but I don't know what he can offer. And then I was like, oh, what? Like, you went to college. Like, you learned stuff. Me
and you actually, when we had this very long discussion for my podcast, like, we have a very, very similar view on nutrition. Sort of in our views towards carnivore, our views towards ancestral health. So I like that. We definitely link up on that.
Well, yeah. How did you get started with this? Like, what's your background? What did you?
Yeah, can I ask, like, so obviously you have to be a super fit guy to be a Power Ranger. You have to be I would assume so.
You would assume so.
Like, I don't know. Maybe that's a crazy assumption, but I would assume so.
No, that's accurate.
So did your journey into this sort of world of ancestral health start when, before then? Or did you start, after you've had some success and, now this is like a next phase in your career? Like, I'd be curious to kind of hear that timeline.
No, so this was not a well orchestrated next move in my career. This started like I've been active since I was about 5, and I got into martial arts, and I did that for 7 years, and then right when I hit 12, I got obsessed with weight training. Wow. Like, really obsessed. Like, I would watch Pumping Iron every night.
Me too.
Crazy story. I just met Arnold this past week, which was a amazing life event. I can tell you that
about his involvement in Game Changers, because that would be the first question I would have.
I'd be like, what's the deal?
That was front of mind, but then I thought of how big of an impact he's had on my life, and I just put my tail between my legs.
I struggle with this every day because I love that guy, but also
I would say he's, like, in terms of top 3 personalities that had an impact on my goals and, like, my mentality towards life. Like, he's up there. So I just shook his hand and thanked him for everything he's done, and he went, all right, nice.
Where was it?
This was at Gold's Venice, the Mecca. Yeah, so... but yeah, so this goes way back to when I was 12, and I really got into weight training. And the first thing was, how do I put muscle on? So that began like this quest for information about nutrition, and it started with supplementation, obviously, and you're learning about that. When I was about 15 to 17, I dealt with some pretty severe bouts of acne. And my assumption at the time was that it had something to do with internal health, that it had to do with nutrition and with food. But at the time, I didn't feel like I could really influence my diet much because, you're living with your parents and you don't have any funds. So I was studying this.
Physicians aren't suggesting that it's a nutrition.
Definitely not. Right. And every dermatologist is showing you the studies that show no strong correlation between chocolate and acne and all these kind of things. The consensus at the time was that it can't be proven that there's a link. So they would get you on the,
Accutane or something?
Accutane, retinols, the benzoyl peroxides, the salicylic acids, all the topicals and the antibiotics. And I ran the gamut with those, and I did Accutane, and I did antibiotics, and I did all the topicals. And my system was just wrecked by the end of that. It was pretty bad. And then, of course, once you finish that stuff, everything comes back. Mm-hmm. So once I was finally in college, that's when I felt like I could influence my diet, and that's when I adopted what seemed to me to be the best one at the time, which was a whole foods plant-based diet. I had read a lot of Mark Sisson's stuff early on, and like Primal Blueprint before that.
Good for you, man.
Yeah, so he was like my first, kind of leg into all of this. But once I got to college, I was looking at a lot of Dr. Michael Greger. I was looking at a lot of Dr. Esselstyn, and I was just studying a lot of the plant-based movement. So I did that for over 3 years, and skin cleared up, health got a bit better. By the end of that period, though, like that's when things were kind of going downhill. And I was doing, the careful supplementation and making sure all the boxes were checked.
How were they going downhill? Because presumably, because I hear this story a lot. I got in a Whole Foods plant-based diet, Esselstyn. People would come to me all the time with that, and initially, like you said, things got better, right?
Yeah,
like
you
you
cut
kind
out
of
a lot of
accomplish your
crap.
goal, right? You cut
Yeah.
out all this bullshit, and you feel better. What changed?
So basically, gut issues got progressively worse. So bloating, indigestion, all of that. For the first time in my life, I started experiencing anxiety, which I'd never experienced before.
How were your vitamin levels? Do you remember back then?
No, I wasn't
You
like
weren't-
actively monitoring. I was mainly manipulating what I was eating.
Sure.
But gut issues were a huge part of it. And then my appetite was just ravenous, so I would track my calories, and regardless of, I had a very high protein diet, and I was also incorporating like the whole food fats and clearly like a bunch of carbohydrates. And I could eat, 4,000 or 5,000 calories, and my stomach was just distended, and I was still hungry. So I realized, like, for the first time in my life, I was never a big eater, and I realized something was severely off with that. So I'm one season into doing this Power Rangers show, and I'm still vegan. I'm still whole food, plant-based vegan. I'm meal prepping. I'm bringing my stuff to the trailer and heating it up, and I'm that guy. And I just got to a point where after that first season, like, my energy was crap. I was fatigued. My body comp was going downhill. My gut issues were worse than ever. So I took the 3-week hiatus in between seasons, and I was like, okay, I got to figure this out. And I started studying nutrition again, and that's when I started to stumble upon keto, which I flipped overnight, basically. So
This was a while ago, before this whole keto fad.
This was like 2.5 years ago.
Okay, so
Yeah.
right as it's gaining momentum, sort of when me and Brian got together.
Yeah, so it was kind of honestly just before it started to take off. You had Jason Whitrock. He was just doing his like 4,000 calorie day experiment. Everything was I want to say Vinnick and Foley, but I'm flipping that around. What is it? Volick and Finney.
It's
Volick
shocking
and
to me
Finney, yeah.
how recent this stuff is.
It's
Right?
crazy
That's
recent.
shocking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I started to study it a lot during that little hiatus, and I flipped my diet around. 6 months straight keto, the whole second season of filming, I'm keto. And it took care of the hunger, it took care of the gut issues, but the body comp wasn't there. And it was when I started to make the switch into two things kind of helped me out with this. Dr. Naiman's work, going higher protein to energy ratio, and then just focusing on a more carnivorous approach. Once I did that, every single box was checked, and I haven't really gone back since. So
I feel
happy.
like no one's gone back. It's always the plant-based goes carnivore. I mean, some people go strict carnivore and they back down to Sapien, which is, encompasses a lot of things.
The
I
only
guess.
thing that makes any sense at all.
Just so we can plug that. No, yeah, like carnivore adjacent or, whatever, just high animal foods, but no one goes the other way. I've never heard of one. Maybe there is one. Maybe someone goes meat-based and then just turn around.
I'm certain, but it seems like, when people incorporate a lot of animal foods in the diet, like reincorporating plant food seems to happen pretty often. But once you heavily incorporate the animal foods, it's like, I don't see many people going back from that.
I don't think anyone would go back from, say, like 60%. If it's like, I'm 60% animal foods, so it's more, like if you get up to like 90 or 100, you're never going to go below like 60, I feel like.
Yeah. It's a beautiful baseline diet, and from there you can sort of experiment with what's best for you.
So yeah, how did you dial it in? So did you go strict carnivore and then now you're like 95? Like where are you at now?
Oh, where am I at now?
Yeah.
Okay, so for the first like year and a half of me doing this, it was strict carnivore. I started off with just red meat, and then I brought in eggs, and then I started bringing in seafood. First 6 months though was like strict red meat. So I started bringing in different things, and then I would bring in some dairy, and that went in and out quite often. Where I'm at currently is I was attempting to do a strict carnivore diet bulk while maintaining like a pretty good body comp, body fat pretty low. And my thing with it now is like I just can't eat enough. Like the appetite is not there. So what I've been doing is kind of like a carb Nite solution where I'm doing 1 or 2 sweet potatoes, same carnivore template, throughout the day. And then at night I'll have 1 or 2 sweet potatoes that kind of just give me that extra edge with the muscle glycogen that I need. And it's honestly, I can say, and people won't like this, but it's night and day in the gym. Like, I feel like an animal when I lift now. And it's just a little bit,
incorporating a little bit of carbs.
Yeah, it's maybe 50, 75 grams of carbs. I'm probably still in ketosis the next day, but it's substantial.
Like targeted carbs. And so are you seeing difference in muscle mass, or are you seeing difference in just your energy in the gym, or both?
Both. Yeah, both. I've put on like 10 pounds. So all of my lifts have gone up. When I started this, I've been doing this for about 2 months now. When I started that whole Carb Night thing, like before that, squats were at about 225 for 6, and I recently hit 255 for 9.
Wow.
So like my lifts are going up like substantially. Yeah, so I'm definitely noticing it with muscle mass and with strength. And I haven't put on substantial body fat. I don't care if I do, to be honest. I do want to put weight on.
Well, you don't need to be like ripped out of your mind every second of the day.
Exactly,
right?
and that gets very old, you know? I did that for a while, and it's just like, you know, when you wear clothes, nobody knows that you even lift.
Exactly.
When you take it off, you look like Skeletor, and it's just, it gets old. So I was like, you know, I want to try to bulk up.
I have a question. So when I was going through this process, I'm going through this whole process of figuring stuff out when it comes to nutrition. And you mentioned a lot of influences in your initial kind of foray into veganism and plant-based. Tell me some of like the most influential things that made you turn the dial, made you realize, oh, I got this wrong. Like, because for me, I bring it up all the time. There's certain movies, Magic Pill, certain books, Nina Teicholz, On the Day. I don't know. I bring it up all the time, so it's nothing new. Tell like our listeners, you know, people that are on the fence, people that want that next level of knowledge, what were those big, the game changer?
Eye-opener.
Yeah, not to use that term, but
Game changers.
game changers. I keep using it because it's in my head.
God, there were so many. So definitely the ones that you mentioned and the usual suspects like Gary Taubes and Nina Teicholz, and there weren't as many books out at the time. Rob Wolf's stuff was amazing. I went back to a lot of Mark Sisson's stuff and revisited that. Went through everything he had on meat and protein and IGF-1 and mTOR. So I kind of had to reassess my perspective on that. The other thing that was actually a big deciding factor for me, and this isn't nearly as academic, but I looked at certain people that had incredible physiques. One of the guys was Chris Kruger, who
was in this Game Changers thing.
He was.
He was just, we were with him last Wednesday at the studio with Sean Baker filming.
Yeah, he's awesome. So he had this video that said how to get to 4% body fat without tracking calories. And I said, sign me up. So I watched that over and over again. And he basically advocated like a beasting, feasting, fasting, where it's like you're fasting until you train. Yeah, and then you train, and then you'll basically have like a mainly carnivorous kind of meal. And like just looking at the health he was in and the shape he was in and the fact that he wasn't tracking, like it was mind-boggling to me. So it was those kind of things that I was like, okay, I want to give this a shot, and I'm certain that if I reincorporate meat, I'm not going to get cancer in the next 10 years. I think I'll live. So let me just run this experiment and get the results that I want, and then I can find out later on whether or not it's the right choice, you know? Because I figure I can study this stuff later, but I want results now.
That's fun.
So that was kind of my mindset, you know?
It's a fun way to approach it.
Because it's not going to kill you immediately.
Well, what's the opposite?
Well, it's not
question?
going to kill you.
It's not going to. Let's just clear that up. But that was my dilemma.
So the opposite question is, how'd you buy in the first place, and what were these big arguments that kind of made you think that plant-based was the way? And then just a lot of people listening, they want to know these things, or they know someone who's just down this rabbit hole, and like, what do you even say to them? Like, how do you get?
Well, I
through
think
them?
most people listening are probably not vegan or vegetarian,
You're
but
right.
everyone,
That's for sure.
everyone, and this is a common question. I know all of us get this: is I've got a friend, I've got a family member, I want to help them. What do I say to them? Where do I point
How
them
do you break
to?
through? Because you broke through. Like, you had to do your own personal journey. So, is
But
there
if you
anything
had to, I've got a bunch of patients that I'm trying to either convince or encourage to like be more compliant, whatever it is. Give me some tools. Like what? I mean, you've obviously dove deep in this.
So the thing about that is people do things either because it's extremely easy or because they're highly motivated to do it. And for me at the time, I was extremely motivated to do it because I had a camera on me and I wanted to look the part, I wanted to feel the part, and I was tired of the 3+ years of feeling like garbage. So to me, it was simple to look for a solution. The thing that got me into the whole plant-based stuff was skin issues. So even going plant-based, you have to have a strong motivator for that. Like, what's going to make you cut meat out?
It's just harder.
Yeah.
It's harder, honestly, than what we're suggesting.
So the thing that got me into that was looking at this whole like mitochondrial theory of aging and the role that antioxidants could play in that. And it started with all the skin stuff, and then that led me on to some of Dr. Greger's videos on like Orax cores, hibiscus tea, antioxidants, the effects that these things can have on skin. And then it just led me down the whole rabbit hole about, all-cause mortality, and watching all his talks, and it's this panacea, and you're like, okay,
wow,
shit, I cleared my
real.
skin, but I also saved my life. Like, this is incredible. And I would buy, Healthy at 100, and I would buy How Not to Die, and I would give them to friends and people that were dealing with chronic diseases. So I was that guy, but it's because you care. So I understand when people are very vehement about this stuff, because they care.
Yeah.
Now, I swear to God, I'm the wrong person to convince people to not be vegan, because I'm very much like, you're on your own journey. And the right things will happen in your life to influence you to make the right changes. So simply telling someone what to do, like, it's tricky, but what I can say is that for what this is worth, I feel infinitely better. Every single box that I ever wanted checked off in terms of my health, in regards to energy, body composition, mental focus and mental clarity, the brain fog being gone. That's an incredible thing as well. The ability to fast for a long time and to not constantly need a food source, that tells you something as well. Strength going up, muscle mass going up. So all of these different, so digestion is great. You're not literally gassy all day and you can't digest your own food. Like, every single box that I wanted checked off has been checked off. So if that is a heart disease promoting, terrible diet,
world.
That's a sure, weird way to feel symptomatic about all that stuff. So
we talk about like the vegan or convincing people not to be vegan or vegetarian.
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest challenge that I face is getting people to let go of grain. I think people they hear us on the sugar thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
The sugar thing makes a lot of sense. They are starting to, especially with all this recent publications. I mean, people again listening probably know there's starting to have a lot of support for the pro meat side of things, right? What I find is people have a hard time letting go of grain. And I find that like when people let go of grain, that's where things really get interesting.
Yeah.
That's where the metabolism changes. That's where you start playing with
inflammation goes down.
That's where you start really seeing people change.
Yeah.
So that's really the trick.
Same thing with me. That's one of me, is the grain. I kept them around for like a couple of years.
And then, because look, you mentioned
changer.
It's not just low carb, right? You mentioned, like for strength, like you kind of are starting to find that happy place, but you're talking about sweet potatoes.
Yeah.
Right? We're not talking about grains. We're talking about there's carbs out there. And so, while I support the whole carnivore movement, I think there's a role for it as almost like the ultimate elimination diet is the way I talk about it. It's a method to heal yourself.
Yeah.
But it's not really the diet, in my opinion. The diet is a Sapien diet. It's a diet that takes into account all factors. It's customized to every individual person. It's focused on real food, fasting, all the stuff that we're talking about, right? But this issue of vegan vegetarian, what I think is more interesting is this concept of plant-based is a good thing, and that is so married to the grains, right? And this is the thing that I think we're really working to break, is this concept that it's acceptable. It shouldn't even be acceptable to eat grains the way we eat grains in America.
Yeah. I think the whole debate around, the perfect diet or the perfect human diet, I stay out of that, but I will say, like, from the different things I've experimented with and everything that I've read, an animal-based diet really makes sense to me, with some aspects of nose to tail incorporated in there.
100%.
It completely makes sense to me. And then I think on top of that, if you want to include coffee or herbs and spices, or if you want to include starchy tubers at night for performance. I think those things are great, and that's things that people can experiment with. You'll have the autoimmune, people dealing with autoimmune issues that are immediately triggered by lectins. You'll have people that just want to get stronger in the gym that should totally add a sweet potato. So it's very, very goal dependent. And sometimes this conversation about the perfect diet gets extrapolated to everyone. And it's so important for people to know when they go into listening to these podcasts, hearing all of the authoritative recommendations of every single doctor and all the, major voices in the space. What are your goals going into this? Because it's so easy to get swayed. Like, I went through a period where I stopped listening to podcasts for 6 months. And that's a terrible thing to say on a podcast, but I stopped listening to podcasts for 6 months because I realized I couldn't find my rhythm. It's like I'm trying to ride this bike, and every single time it's like, but circadian rhythms are thrown off, and you should actually be eating during the daytime. And it's like, crap, I thought I just had that figured out, or they bring in a new superfood, or a new this, or a new that. And I realized, like, the perfect diet is completely pointless if you're not even able to execute it consistently. So it's kind of like take a step way back and ask yourself, where am I actually at right now?
Love it.
And that's the kind of stuff that Ted and I talk about a lot. And we have a whole section at the end of the book, which is about consistency. And the idea that consistency is the magic pill you've been searching for, which, like, I love that because that applies to so many things in life. But that's kind of my take on it. Like, work your way up there slowly and progress. An animal-based diet is probably the way to go from everything we've seen and everything we've experienced.
Why
and then on top of that,
Why probably?
Trying to be diplomatic. No.
That's
just some people.
That's part
Well,
of
you
it.
just wrote a book
Yeah.
that encourages people to eat an animal-based diet.
Yeah.
Well, the PDE ratio, you can do it with a plant-based approach in a kind of, maybe.
You can do it with a
Maybe not.
plant-based approach. I don't think it's optimal.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me put it this way. I personally believe that an animal-based diet is the way to go. I say probably because how many iterations have I gone through with my diet where I was wrong before,
Great answer.
So I don't ever stand out there and say, like, guys, I finally got it. Because it's like, this is my 98th try of,
And
so
that's being flexible and changing and evolving, and your goals will change over time.
Yes.
So your diet will change over time.
and being humble about that too, I think, like, we all get really, really excited when we come upon these discoveries and we solve certain issues, and immediately it's straight to social media and stuff like that. But that's a little dangerous sometimes. So I always have that little grain of salt. And the hardline carnivores don't like me for that. And they're like, you should just say, like, it's the way to go. And I'm like, I can't do that. Like, I've experimented too much.
That's a good attitude, and that's kind of what we're trying to do too, because we keep calling it the Sapien diet like it's one thing. It's not one thing. It's a whole framework. It's a whole thing, and
It's a lifestyle.
right. It's a
much.
lifestyle, and it's an array of foods you can make. You can have, if you only want to eat fish and eggs, and you don't want any meat. You can make that work in our framework. We're kind of just saying this is like how Homo sapiens lived, and all the things you mentioned. You're talking about eating animal-based, nose to tail, plus some starchy tubers, maybe some herbs, stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's a evolutionary
Yeah.
diet.
Would you say you
That's
eat a
what we've had.
Would you say you eat a sapien diet?
So I would need clarity on these certain foods.
Trying to get an endorsement right here. William Shewfelt.
I would
The
say,
Red Power
I would say,
Ranger.
I'll make this. I'll
love
make
it.
this really simple. I will say 95% of the time I eat a Sapien diet. One thing that I'm currently doing for my superficial, like, lifting goals is I'm doing this protein shake where it's whey protein isolate, it's collagen protein, it's 6 raw egg yolks, it is some pink salt, and then I have some raw whole milk in there. So I don't know if the isolates and the collagen and stuff like that is
that's part
whole foods, but
that's where I'm at. I mean, that sounds good.
to me it's all goal oriented.
We don't have, like, we're not dogmatic about it either. Like,
Yeah.
just because it wasn't around forever, but it's like what can work for you now and what's handy. Or, like, I make bone broth, and then I'm like, oh well, if I don't have bone broth, I'll use some collagen powder. Like, I don't care. Like, I need more magnesium. I'll take some magnesium and throw it in my bone broth. Like,
Yeah, I think our approach is to apply these concepts to a modern world.
Yes,
right? And
that's
like the
important
modern
thing.
world is where all these dogmatic approaches fall apart because we live dynamic lives that are completely
Yeah.
broken from our evolutionary origins, and it's very artificial, and it's very hard to eat a really nose to tail diet. Like I try my hardest and I cannot eat everything I possibly need, so I supplement. And I notice the supplements, and I do a lot of whole food supplements now. I added like an adrenal cortex supplement. I don't know if you guys ever played with that.
Yep.
I was feeling like, oh man, I'm working so hard. I'm having adrenal fatigue for sure. I'm burned out. I added that. I added really high dose vitamin D, life changing. Like boom.
Well, if you can't get in the sun, you're in this doctor's office.
I'm just working a lot. I mean, even when I do get in the sun, like it's hard. It's consistency is hard, right?
Yeah.
Like your point about consistency. Yeah. But if you got to pay, you got bills to pay. People have kids. You got to commute to work. Like life is hard.
In practice, I think the best thing we can do is advocate like highest ROI best practices, which like one of the things we talk about in this book is unifocal over-reliance. So when you over-exaggerate one thing, you'll have like Instagram, like so on Instagram, you'll see people who it's like meditation Bob or like keto Sally or like fasting Bill, and it's like these people that really nail one
I know all
thing.
of them.
Yeah, you know, and it's like you want to zoom out, and we talk about don't over rely on any one of these tools. These are all levers that you can pull. So meditation, social relationships. Like when they talk about the blue zones, they're always quick to say, "Oh, but it's not just plant based. They had social friendships and all this stuff."
So complicated. The blue zones are so much more complicated. Than
Yes,
this.
it is.
I'm like diving deep into that world, and I'm just like, it's way more than diet.
Yeah.
They're living a special life. That's what they're doing.
Yeah, so the main thing about that is like all of these variables matter. Get out in the sun, walk as much as you can, stand as much as you can, get a good amount of sleep, incorporate like a whole foods diet that's animal based. Do some fasting. Don't constantly be grazing. Like all of these different things. Do some high intensity exercise. They're all important. And when you combine all of them, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. So if you're just like carnivore, like what else are you missing out on? And in terms of the blue zones, I read in Mark Sisson's newsletter like a month or two ago something about how like a lot of those populations didn't actually have birth records. So they're not certain.
Oh, yeah, it's
because
trickier,
it's like a thing of pride to exaggerate your age in those, you're more of an elder. So I was like, wow, that's interesting.
There's so much to it. And I should let people in on a secret. You're talking about the Sapien diet. We're talking about the same thing. The secret is a lot of people know this, and we're just kind of like labeling it and just trying to get it out there. It's like it's not like we are heroes for coming up with the Sapien diet. No. All we're doing. We're
I think
I'm just saying.
I know where you're getting to. Brian.
I'm just trying to say is like, well, not everyone knows it. There's like this group of people that we're friends with, and we all know it, and we're all trying to just spread this information. But it's all the same. We're all on the same page, and you just listed every single part of a Sapien diet and lifestyle. So
Then yes, I'm in.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting.
you just seriously you laid it out.
I was part of lucky enough to join Bill Schindler's recent Schindler. Bill Schindler's recent summit on basically an education summit where he got a bunch of people that are in this space to talk about nutrition. And me and him were joking because he's got the modern Stone Age diet, right? You've got the PE diet, right?
Yeah. The lion diet.
The lion diet. The carnivore diet, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. And I was like, well, what, we're all kind of stepping on each other's toes. We're not, though.
We're not.
We are trying to define what is the healthiest approach to living in an environment that's frankly poisonous.
Yeah,
right?
and
so it doesn't matter. Like you have your diet, we have our diet. They're all the same thing. We're just trying to, if you can get through to a couple 100,000 people, and we can get through to a couple 100,000 people, and then eventually that community will grow. And who knows what term gets ultimately like anchored to this. I think it's going to be an ancestral diet. Like in the end of the day, the thing that makes us all connected is we're going back to our roots. Yeah. So that's why I love our name, simply for the fact that it echoes ancestral health, right? But you said it, first line you said was ancestral health. Yeah. Right? And to me, that's the heart of all of this stuff. Is like, forget about your randomized placebo-controlled studies. Forget about what's been recommended by these massive organizations and physicians for decades. What we know, what works. We evolved for millions of years. We became alpha species. There's nothing that dominates this planet like we do. It didn't happen by eating a shitty diet.
Yeah.
And living miserably. No, it happened because we had it figured out.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what I mean? Like,
one of the interesting things about the whole consensus around nutrition in this country is that it's based on a lot of epidemiology, and it's based on these studies. And at the end of every single study, it's always further research is needed to, create more support for this. And the thing is, people are living their lives by the results of, the past 70 years of this relatively new field of nutrition research. But the thing is, like, we can't really wait for that further research,
No.
we don't have that many years. So you want to find the best
also,
solution.
who's paying for that research?
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's not people interested in our health,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's people interested in making money.
People who have money and that,
Companies.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's just...
Dr. Tro and Sean Baker recently posted they were at a obesity conference, and they were showing the number one contributors to medical, massive
There's Cornell,
medical schools and academic institutions.
Nestle.
And it's all food companies.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
So if food companies paid for my medical education, then it's no surprise that I was taught to treat people with a carb consistent diet and just count carbs and let them eat all the shit.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. Otherwise, I'm going to undercut their bottom line.
Yeah.
So I worry, not sure about this, that we are being trained, we are training our specialists, or the physicians, our dietitians, we're being trained by food companies and drug companies. And that to me is alarming at least, and horrifying, really. Because, that's not science.
It's obvious why it's alarming.
Yeah, right.
But
it's, anyway.
So, okay, I'm going to steer this back to the book because I love the book and I love Ted. And
I forgot.
I
forgot about that.
No. So, how we can get around it is just, for one, lay out the thesis. I love the thesis.
What's the
it's
title?
So simple. And then it's like you can go around this system if you just, pay attention to this book and these concepts.
It's a genius concept, by the way.
It was honestly...
What's the book called, though?
So the PE diet, and PE stands for protein to energy ratio. And to us, that's the first lever that you can pull, because our central thesis is that what you eat is ultimately going to determine how much you eat, which is going to have a huge effect on things like body composition, longevity, health span, rather than just thinking about lifespan and how long you can hold on for dear life, your health span, as well as, just overall, like your body. So we called it the PE diet, but we get into a lot in the book. So we talk about what it does when you increase protein to energy ratio in your diet, the way that reflects in your body's own protein to energy ratio, incorporating fasting within that framework, incorporating high intensity exercise. Everything we list in the book, we literally cut out so much, and there are like hundreds of pages that we did not even put in there that we just said, nope, not necessary, because everything we wanted in there was like minimum effective dose, like highest return on investment with your time, with your choices. We could have gone into a whole section on organ meats or a whole section on this or that, but it's like the thing that I kept thinking going into this, and Ted and I both linked up on this, was if my mom or dad was to pick this book up like off a bookshelf and they thumb through it for like 5 minutes, would they come away having some very strong practices that could transform their health forever? That was what we wanted. So it wasn't meant to appeal maybe to like the biohacker crowd or like the keto crowd or kind of the space that we're in, but we're really trying to zoom way out with this, and how do we appeal to everybody? So there's probably, parts in there that each sect of this community we're in might take issue with, but overall we're trying to create this like unified approach. And when you really, really dumb it down, get out in the sun, do some high intensity exercise, walk as much as you can, do some fasting. You can have coffee while you're fasting if it makes it easier for you. Focus on protein and minerals in the diet. basically to help satiate that nutrient hunger in the body so that it can quell some of the energy hunger and some of the overeating that occurs when people are trying to fulfill those nutrients that you need. And that was another one of the major things. And the reason I was so passionate about this was because I was like the case study of all of Ted's ideas, and I implemented everything, and like my life got substantially better. My thing was like, how can I just forget about this whole diet and exercise kick that I've been on for like 10 years? And how can I just move on with my life and my work? And once I started implementing his stuff, it was like, wow, this is simple. I'm not tracking stuff. I have energy. I have focus, like everything that I wanted. And I was actually able to devote myself to writing, to acting, to all the different things I'm trying to pursue. And that's what we want for everyone. What we say in the first part of the book is, so we say in the first part of the book that like without health, you really have nothing. So we're trying to make health and optimal health as easy as possible for everyone. How can we democratize that? So that was kind of the idea behind the book. And I had called Ted up and I was like ready to beg. If I had to beg, I would beg. But I was like, look, nobody puts this stuff all together the way you do. Like, I've seen people ask you, do you have a book coming out? Like, please, can we make a book happen? And luckily now, like over a year later, it's finally out there. And then now we're taking the steps necessary to get the hard copy ready. So it's fun. I'm happy that it's
I
out.
see how you guys connected.
I should have done that. I should have talked to Ted about this.
I asked him about it because I wanted to read his book,
No, it's funny because I joke around with Ted all the time that we're going to write, before it came out, I was like, we're going to write the same book, Ted. I was like scared. I was like, I asked William too. I was like, are you guys going to write the same book that I'm writing? Like,
But we need all the books.
That's what he said.
That's
like, we
exactly
need all the
it.
books.
Like Ted said.
Regardless, we each have different voices and we will speak to different people in a different way that will click with them. You never know what's going to click with somebody. You could I could tell my parents to eat a certain way, but until they hear it from Dr. Oz, they won't do it. So it depends on like who's saying it and how the message is presented.
Also, we're building a wave, right? Like there's like 25 vegan documentaries and like 3 non-vegan ones.
Yeah.
And we're working on our next one. And
Yes.
there's a handful of other people. And, the carnivore book came out with Sean Baker, right? This book, I mean, for me, it gives, every time I talk to a patient about this, every time I talk to a family member about this, I'm like, hey, here's another book. Here's another book. So it's like we're building a wave that's unstoppable. We have to fight against such big industries that every one of these things is chipping away.
And it's different framing. I told Ted my things coming from it's like the same information, but framed a lot differently, coming from a different angle.
Yeah.
So it's fine. It's like everyone comes up from their own angle, and it's very similar, but it's very different. So I'm fine. I'm fine.
Yeah.
You're fine, Brian.
I'm fine with it. Well, hey,
I think, Brian, you've invested so much of your life into it. Like, you're on it, man. And the ideas you're bringing are novel.
no, I'm
But
not
they're
worried
all
about it.
inspired. But, like, we all were
But I learned
inspired
from
by
Ted.
Ted. That's what I'm saying is
Exactly.
that's a guy who's brilliant and who brings a lot to the game. And I'm so excited that you were able to, like, bottle that up with him.
Yeah.
Because that's, I mean, for me to listen to it and understand what he's talking about is easy. But for a lot of people, it's hard to digest. He is really high level, deep understanding of what's going on. And I think that, bottling him up and sharing him with the world is so powerful. So I feel you on, like, that's what...
To me, that's what a master is. When you have, like, he has a deep understanding of everything that gets said in this whole health and nutrition space and all of the studies, and then he can take all of that and present the ideas so simply in a picture that might not even have any words. And it immediately clicks, and you're like, holy crap, that makes sense, and that's pretty incontrovertible. And that's what we want in the book. Like, that's what I love about it. And in terms of what you were saying about the wave, I think that what we have on our side is a couple things, but number one, like the medical community that has been promoting like this sort of conventional diet and the balanced diet for so many years, like it sucks so bad and it doesn't work. That gives people so much motivation to figure out what does work. And the second thing that I think we have is social media. We don't have to go through the old mediums of, it needs to be published through Reader's Digest. It needs to be on on Oprah. It needs to be through these old channels, and there's gatekeepers. Now it's like literally everybody is sharing their experiences organically on YouTube, on social media. And where are the eyes and ears of everybody? It's not really on TV that much anymore. Netflix, Instagram, YouTube, and we have a lot of say over all of that. So I love that part of it, and that's why I think the movement is pretty unstoppable right now, and that's why you see so many articles about this diet is super unsafe and it's super dangerous, and they're trying to pump out as much as they can.
It's a war of information, right?
Yeah.
But finally, that's why this whole carnivore thing or whatever, Sapien or anything, couldn't have happened 10 years ago.
Yeah.
The social media, the channels weren't there because it was still the traditional outlets, like you're saying. I was so interested, like, why is it happening now? Or,
Yeah.
It's
Well, I mean, if you think about it, like, okay, I'm a doctor. I graduated. I started practicing. And unless there was social media, I mean, I believe Brian. He inspired me. He got me reading some books. Mm-hmm. But unless there was Ted Naiman, a physician, practicing this stuff, I'm not going to go on through all my inspirations, but, like, there's these people that you can now reach out to.
Yeah.
They're you can touch them through your whatever.
Yeah.
And that is going to inspire me to step out of the box and do something that's completely controversial in the health space. Mm-hmm. It's not just me. There's a group of doctors. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of nutritionists. There's influencers like you guys who have a lot of eyeballs on you. And so that's what it is. It's the fact that we can connect. It's the fact that you can come here. We have all the gear to record a podcast and share it with all these people. This is new. Like, this is new. Like,
you don't have to have a radio
you don't, all this technology is new.
Yeah.
Like, literally, the mixer we're using is a few years old.
Yeah.
That thing used to cost $1,000. Got it for a couple $100. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's so many things that are changing. But Putin brought this up. Vladimir.
I was wondering.
He's a brilliant guy. There's really great talks that he does. He does like these open conversations. People just ask him questions. He's a brilliant guy. I don't believe in everything, but he's a brilliant guy.
Yeah.
And he's like, we are in the biggest war of all history, and that is this war of information. And everyone is firing so much information to muddy up the picture.
Yeah.
So that there's so much out there that the lay person is like, holy shit, what do I believe? Like, that's Schwarzenegger and James Cameron telling me to only eat plants.
I've had
That
so many
sounds
people
legit.
send me that.
It sounds
I
legit.
swear.
Like, I get it, but that's a war of information. If you put out, if you're trying to propagate whatever you're trying to propagate, you're going to put out so much information on it. You're going to drown people out, right? So that's, again, back to this point of write your book, do your podcast, write your book, do your podcast. We're making our movie. Let's make another movie. Let's make an anti-doc. You got it. This is what it is. It's a war, and people need to hear this stuff.
It kind of takes volume, and then it takes saying the same message a million times in different ways. Like, that's something I learned from Chris Bell, where he makes these posts that inspire so many people about the way that his life has been transformed through carnivore and kratom and fasting. And just doing those few things, like, he's still lifting and he's in the best shape of his life and he's ripped.
Dude looks savage.
Yeah, with 2 fake hips, and he's in his mid-40s right now, and it's just incredible. Like, he's hitting his stride. And he will essentially, if you look at the caption, he'll do almost the same post, but in a different way every time. And then you see so many people send him transformations. Like, a couple of years ago, I started reading your stuff. And if you even look at the way that the president tweets, there's so much volume with it. He's consistently touching on.
He's in the war.
He's
he
super
won the
aware
war.
of that.
That's how he won the election, right? He blasted us with his stuff to the point where he normalized his behavior.
Yeah,
no one's even wigged out anymore. It's normal.
I think a huge part of this whole movement. It's so funny that we're getting into the movement of this and propaganda and things like that, but. If you don't speak up about this, obviously, there is this whole plant-based movement that will be speaking up about this, and they already are, because they are morally convinced that, there's an ethical obligation to speak up against the suffering of these animals for the protection of the environment. So they're super motivated and they're like willing to go all the way for this. And who knows what legislation can be passed? Who knows what taxes can be imposed upon meat and upon animal products and upon all these foods that are essential for our health? So I'm usually not the person to be like, yeah, screw the vegans and stuff like that. I'm usually like, hey, everybody do what they want. But I see the need for everybody to start speaking about their experiences. Like, a lot of people hold back because they're like, what do I have to say on social media? Like, X, Y, and Z person is saying it for me. But it's like, just go on there and speak about your experiences. What are you eating? How's it going for you? And be authentic about it. And you don't need to raise the carnivore flag and be like, my whole life is carnivore, but just talk about what's working for you. Because those voices will create huge waves in this movement. Look at what Sean Baker going on Joe Rogan did for so many people. Everybody's like, and then I heard Sean Baker on Joe Rogan, and you've heard that story so many times.
Changing. It's like December 10th, like 2017. I interviewed 2 days before. I don't know if this exact date right, but it was like a moment in history almost.
Yeah.
It opened up the...
That's so crazy.
It was a game changer. And I think
really
in a lot of ways, that's why the community has so much anchoring in the carnivore part of it. I think the carnivore part of it is like fighting fire with fire.
Yeah.
Right?
Like
and that's why I love it.
Yeah,
I love
yin
it
and
for that
yang.
reason, because fuck it. We need to fight fire with fire. Like, this shit is a battle. Like, it's a war. That being said, I don't think that carnivore should be the heart of the movement. I think it's like a really powerful tool, but we're not carnivore.
Yeah, I don't want to get into that. That's what this Game Changers debunking film we're doing. People think, oh, it's a carnivore film. I'm like, no. Just because I happen to have carnivores in it doesn't mean
just
it's
the
a
fact that
carnivore
we
film.
as human beings happen to be carnivores.
Facultative.
Facultative carnivores.
No,
Very
yeah,
good.
but humans for all of history, like back to what you said, you're like, oh, we had the tubers and we had some herbs and stuff. We were never 100% carnivore. It's like humans always tried to get these little bit, whether maybe it's 1%, but at least that's a little bit.
We weren't
of that
trying.
stuff.
We were surviving.
Surviving,
right?
exactly.
Humans didn't think about this shit until agriculture.
Yeah.
After agriculture, that's where really the page turns in the history of humanity. I bring this up a lot, but the Sapiens, the story of us by Yuval Harari, is this amazing book where he sort of outlines human history, reimagines evolutionary biology, incorporating so much information that's new, and he clarifies how like that's where this thing changed.
Yeah.
And you didn't have to worry about nutrition when you were a hunter-gatherer. You had to worry about survival.
Yeah.
Well, also, this is a good point in your guys' book, PE Diet, that when you just focus on food choice or what was available to people for all of history, you don't have to worry about anything because it naturally keeps you satiated. It naturally has all the nutrients and the protein that you need.
Yeah.
And so you should also spell out what is the protein to energy ratio, because you didn't get to exactly what it is. Like, what's a simple version for people listening?
So basically, if you look at any food, you have protein and minerals, and then you have energy calories. Energy calories being carbs and fats. So a lot of these post-agricultural revolution foods or post-industrial revolution foods, processed foods, have a very low protein to energy ratio, meaning the proportion of protein to energy calories in those foods is usually pretty low. If you go all the way up to a lot of these, you could call them Paleolithic foods, or
That's a good word.
yeah. So if you go all the way back to that, and you look at certain leafy greens, these very fibrous, tiny, starchy tubers, you look at obviously wild animals, lean wild animals, you would have been getting a very high protein to energy ratio. So one of the things we talk about is that Paleolithic man would basically have been eating a very high protein to energy ratio diet that was energy constrained. Because these were not the fatted calves. These were not potatoes the size of your fist.
You're saying they didn't have fields of avocados?
They might have,
They
but
didn't
probably
have
not.
just everywhere, just enough for every single person to buy an avocado
Like
per
a
day.
banana and a kiwi flown in.
Oh,
And
man.
that's
and
where
almonds
we
everywhere that you can grind up and make almond butter. And
that is where we differentiate from, I guess, the popular keto movement. When you have like an avocado and then you put some Kerrygold in it and then you have a handful of macadamia nuts, like good luck finding that energy dense, high fat food in nature.
That's why I'm against all the coffees, the butter chuggers. I love it. 2 years ago, I interviewed Ted Naiman, and he told me the term butter chuggers.
Isn't it excellent?
And I'm like, I get it now. Why people can't lose weight on keto? Because this is not natural. This is insane.
Well, because keto essentially is another way to make money.
But
Right.
when we go way back, it's a therapeutic treatment to really skyrocket your ketones, you know?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Ketogenic metabolic therapy is so powerful. And
It's just I think Gary's talking about this a little bit hijacked by the media and money.
Oh, without a doubt. The
Yeah.
almond flour industry,
Yeah,
like,
it's-
wow.
I just,
Yeah.
my
There's
friend,
a difference between
my friend is in GI fellowship, so gastroenterology. Really high-end university, highly trained physician already, becoming a specialist in inflammatory bowel disease. He's in his 3rd year. Have they ever given him a nutrition lecture in his 3 years of fellowship? No. Have they ever brought up the concept of a ketogenic metabolic therapy to heal your gut? No. Do they even talk about really, outside of very basic stuff, the role of gut microbiome? No. This is 2019.
Whoa.
This guy's being trained right now.
Yeah.
And they are teaching him how to do procedures and provide biologic therapies. Biologic meaning a lot of these drugs that we use for inflammatory bowel disease modulate your immune system, and so they're like called biologics. They suppress your immune system for the most part. God only knows what that's doing to you, right? But think about this, guys. Zero education. I never even heard of the word ketogenic metabolic therapy until I was done with my training. So,
And did you hear about it outside of training, just through your own research?
I heard about keto through Brian.
Oh, wow.
It's seriously not on people's radar.
Yeah,
It's-
there's ketoacidosis, and that's about as far as it goes,
In
I
the
think.
doctor world, they tell
Well,
you, they scare you away from it.
You do
Yeah.
learn about ketone production, and you in physiology and biochemistry, you
Yeah.
learn the mechanisms. So when I stepped back and I thought about everything, this was where my brain went, oh shit, was actually I know more about this than Brian did when he was telling me to do it. I'm like, I could describe to you how ATPs are made. I could describe to you how ketones work in the body. I know how to test for them in the context of like diabetes management, right? I know a lot about them, but only in the context of sick disease and what they can do bad. And so it was never a treatment.
Yeah.
It was never a dietary strategy. It was never an option to help anything.
It's just a
even though, like
mechanism.
you suggested, it's been a treatment.
Yeah.
You know, it's been in the world of medicine in the past, but it got diluted slowly but surely because you can't make money putting people on a ketogenic diet. I honestly believe that. And I don't think this is news for everyone. But again, one of these things we're just going to keep repeating.
Yeah.
It's like, this is a money game here.
It's not a
Right.
conspiracy. It's just simple economics. It's just
Yeah.
you can't make money. It's easier to prescribe a pill. We use it for epilepsy. We use the ketogenic metabolic therapy. And then we came out with a drug, and everyone's like, all right, we'll just use the drug. And they forgot about it. It's simple. We can make money off the drug, and it's easier.
It's crazy, though, that there was this
Fantastic.
ketogenic diet, and it's being used to treat epilepsy and conditions like that, and the people are losing weight, and they say, hey, this would be a great weight loss diet. Like, it's crazy that that's
Well,
the
and
leap that they
I
took
do
with
worry-
it, you know?
Back to the conspiracy thing, I'm becoming that guy. I'm accepting it. It's fine. You know, well, a lot of what I heard about ketosis is that it's dangerous. I heard that, you know, you can hurt your kidneys. You can get sick. Like, so I don't know where those myths sort of surfaced in my education. And this is anyone who's gone through medical school has heard this stuff like all the time. And so that's a little questionable to me. So I can see how you can sort of, without a conspiracy or without any kind of manipulation, sort of suppress this as a therapy and sort of, you know, not make it a strategy of diet, but to then have really like almost fear or like scare. You see what I'm saying?
That part, it's like scaremongering. You know, when you say
Fear-mongering.
dangerous, like that's a heavily loaded term. Like, how scientific is it to say this is dangerous and bad for you?
I mean, this is how prevalent it is. I don't know if I've told this story on the podcast, but I was in the emergency room admitting patients. Kid comes in, He was like buff guy, 22, doing keto, came in, kidney failure, like a little bit of like gastritis, tummy inflammation. And he gets admitted by my colleague who's older. He's been in the game for a while. He's like in his 60s. And he gets diagnosed with acute kidney injury, dehydration secondary to a ketogenic diet. And I was like, that's your diagnosis? And I challenged him and I was like, honestly, I need you to explain that, because everyone came up to me and they're like, see, Gary, you're the keto guy. Like, this guy got sick on it. I was like, all right. And everyone respects this doctor. So, and I was like, I did too. I still do. Anyway, I come up to him and we have a conversation and I'm like, well, what's the deal? He's like, well, he's doing this diet. That's the change. And that's what caused it. And we know that it could cause kidney failure. And I was like, interesting. You mind if I go talk to him? So I went and talked to the kid. All right. So the kid is like, yeah, I've been doing great, losing weight, getting buff, doing the ketogenic diet, but I got sick. I think I ate something bad. I started vomiting. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't eat. I took some ibuprofen to try to make it better. And next day I'm in the hospital. So you vomited, got profoundly dehydrated, and then on an empty stomach took an NSAID, which is known to cause kidney failure and known to break down your gut lining and cause stomach upset. And that was not the cause, and the ketogenic diet, which he was doing well with, was the cause.
Yeah, how do you make that leap?
Wow.
I'm saying it's not that the doctor was wrong. It's that the idea that this is not a healthy thing and that this is dangerous.
It makes it easier to make
so
the leap.
ingrained. It's just so ingrained. And I went to him and I was like, you're wrong. Stop telling people this. This is scaring people. I went to everyone I could and been like, this is not what happened. This is what happened. The kid was like, yeah, you're right. And like 3 months later, that guy's heavy and I watched him eat egg whites with low fat dressing salad and not making eye contact with me while I'm eating like 4 burgers, patties.
Wow.
And it was just like, it was still just it's a huge hurdle we have to face. And I tell the story to remind everyone what we're up against. It's not that people are malicious. It's that we are anchored in really archaic ideas.
Yeah.
100%. We got to wrap it up in a second. I want to let William talk about exercise, the exercise component. He's going to talk about that much. I love the concept of going to failure. I love brief, intense workouts. So what do you guys talk about in the book, and what do you do in normal life?
Oh, okay. They're slightly different. They're slightly different for me. For Ted, it's basically the exact same thing.
Ted has an interesting framework, and that's what he does.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's not for everyone.
So the cool part about Ted's story is that he allegedly has never touched a barbell or a dumbbell in his life. I ain't sure, but
maybe he moved
so
one. He didn't even move one. It was in his way, and
I like believing it.
Yeah,
I want to believe it.
I like the story of it. So he's developed this great physique basically through doing 1 set to failure bodyweight calisthenics daily for about 15 minutes. So what that means is you're kind of going from head to toe. It's a full body workout. So let's say you start with something for your legs. So you're doing jump squats or lunge jumps or sprints or something like that. And then you go up to maybe a pushing movement. So that could be push-ups. It could be wall push-ups, bench push-ups, dips, depending on how advanced you are. There's so many different variations, infinite variations. You could be morbidly obese and there's something that you can do. There's some variation of a pushing, a pulling, a leg exercise, and then a hinge for your core. And then I forget what the back one is. But it's basically like a posterior chain exercise.
Oh, like a swing, like a kettlebell swing. Well, he doesn't use weights.
You could do something like that, or you could do like a bridge, or one of the variations that's closer to a bridge. But basically, we show you a bunch of variations.
And this is in the book.
Yes,
I love it.
So we've got pictures of me looking like a dork doing all of these different exercises, and what it looks like. And our whole goal with this is you don't need a gym membership, you don't need equipment, you don't need a fancy outfit, you don't need time even. Who doesn't have 15 minutes? Yeah. So in between commercials, you can do this stuff, and it's literally 1 set to failure. And then we also touch on the idea of nano workouts, which people also call micro workouts. And it's basically better to get frequent exercise in throughout the day than to have one mega killer powerlifting session a week, you know? So one of the ideas that we both subscribe to is that the body responds to regular use as well as regular disuse. So the idea of hypertrophy, you want to be consistently using these muscles on a frequent basis. And this idea of like greasing the groove. So just constantly staying mobile and getting a full body workout on a daily basis. It's high intensity enough that you're going to be burning a good amount of calories and you're going to be getting a very strong adaptation response. So the idea of, I think it's the SAID principle, where it's specific adaptation to impose demand. So because you're imposing this really hard demand on your body for 30 seconds, you're doing jump squats as many as you can until you can't do them anymore. Well, in those 30 seconds, your legs will have a very strong impetus to grow muscle. As opposed to walking for 2 hours, what sort of response is that going to elicit? You'll get better at some lipolysis and some fat burning, and you might increase some aerobic health, but it's 2 hours, you know? So we're giving this minimum effective dose.
You demand your muscles to get bigger, and they will get bigger.
That's a C.T. Fletcher quote. I don't know if you know that guy, but he's a
Hell yeah.
good YouTuber. I demand you to grow.
He's the bomb.
He's actually doing plant-based too right now. But I'm getting off topic. Okay, so so we're advocating this very, very simple daily bodyweight training routine that anybody can do. We're democratizing exercise. You don't need all this fancy stuff and a crazy, awesome program. You just need your own body weight, and you need 15 minutes, and you need progression is the other thing. So if you did 10 push-ups yesterday, try to do 11 tomorrow. And try to consistently up that. And then once you're hitting 20 and you're like, well, this is pointless, well, maybe try a diamond push-up now. And then you're back down to 8 of those, and then 9, and then 10. And until you can do a decline one-arm push-up or a one-arm pull-up, like, there's infinite room for improvement. So you don't have to worry like, well, how far am I going to be able to do this for? Like, probably for life if you want to. Like, this is my traveling workout. When I'm on the road, I don't go to the gym because I don't want to have to, Uber to a 24. So I'll just find a park and I'll just work out for 15 minutes. And I might do a few rounds of this too, just to get some volume in. So,
I've done this too with traveling. Me and my buddies do it in the like Airbnb. We're doing it together. It's really funny.
Super easy.
Super lame, but
it's all you need. It's all you need. I used to struggle, and now this is like the only thing I do. I barely work out, and the response is profound.
Yes. And on top of that, the other thing we advocate is just walk as much as you can. That's the other thing. Now, you asked about what we each do. So Ted is still following this sort of an approach. And when we say one set to failure, what is failure? Well, failure is oftentimes more than you expect. So he does what's called set extenders. So once he's hit as many reps of, let's say, jump squats as he can, he will wait 5 seconds and then do as many as he can again, just to fully get failure in the muscle. You can also do this with negatives. So let's say you're doing push-ups, you hit failure, and then you get right back up into the push-up position and hit a negative.
Yeah.
Or you can
just hold it, right?
Yeah, or you can just hold it, and that would be a static. So there's different ways to hit failure and to really challenge your muscles. And then if you just think like, hey, the pain is only for like 10, 15 minutes, like it ain't that bad. So that's the idea behind that. For me, what I'm doing is I'm lifting 3 days a week. And it's basically compound exercises and bodybuilding exercises. And it's like an 1.5 to 2 hour workout. It's super not time efficient. I just love doing it. I'm trying to build muscle, and it's a passion of mine. Like it's really a fun thing for me to do. And then on the days in between, I'll do like what's road work. So it's literally jogging for like 45 minutes. Again, suboptimal, probably a waste of time, but I love doing it. But you enjoy
exactly. So like, what does it come back to? You love doing it.
Yeah.
You gotta enjoy what you're doing.
Exactly. Like,
if you don't like working out, then do it for 15 minutes like Ted's suggesting. If you love working, like I love running. I don't care if it's good or bad. I'm gonna run. Like, I don't care.
Yeah. Well, it's never bad per se, but if it's not as efficient as possible.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And I love this, and I kind of do some kind of variation or kind of synthesis of those, and I think I'm getting more into the full body every day instead of the bro split where you split it up, and I'm kind of playing around with that. And
you called it a what?
Bro split.
That's like a common term for
the bodybuilding.
Bro.
I did back day like so hardcore.
They would always have these article titles where it's like destroy your delts and blast your bis and like torch your tries and all these great little.
It's like exterminate.
How fun must have been for those people to write copy. I got it. Let's destroy the delta.
Yeah. Well.
Wow, so good.
But to failure, what I was gonna say is I like to do drop sets too. So I use dumbbells. I'm kind of like Ted in a way where I'm like I don't even need to use like the full barbells and all that. I'm not gonna go to gym. I just use dumbbells, which I have an apartment gym, or you go to any hotel has dumbbells. So all my workout is based on dumbbells.
Yeah.
Body weight. I will use a weight vest, but say I'll do 20 push-up I have a 40-pound weight vest. Do the 40-pound weight vest. I'll do like 10 pull-ups. Take it off. Then do like 20
Yeah, we did that, I think, when we worked out. That was tough.
Yeah, and then you could do that with, say, like, okay, I got the 50s. I'm going to do shoulder press 50s. Then I'm going to do the 40s. Then I'm going to do the 30s. So it's a little bit like the rest, pause type of thing.
I like that. But one thing I want to say for probably the crowd that's listening to this is very health conscious, and they're probably training if they found this podcast. But I would say if there are people in your life that are not in the same space and they're not going to... I think doing this 15 minutes, one set to failure exercise daily is even a leap for a lot of people. And I used to love this. I still love this speaker, Jim Rohn, who would just talk about lifestyle and goal setting and things like that. But one of his things was literally just start with the walk around the block. Like what can you actually do? Because the momentum.
Meet yourself where you're at. Too.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the action will perpetuate further action. Like, if you've been walking around the block for 7 days, you might start to think, like, why don't I try jogging this corner? You know, like, you will create momentum, and the momentum's the important thing. So, if this whole, like, jump squats to failure until you can't breathe anymore thing sounds like he's trying to make it sound easy, but it's really extreme, then just start with the walk, you know?
You got me pumped up. I love all this.
Well, yeah, I love that. I love Ted because he's a doctor. He's worked in, like, a clinic setting for like 20 years, and he practices what he preaches. The patients can do it. He's saying this doesn't cost money, this doesn't do anything. So I love it. We have to wrap it up, but I love the book. I seriously tell everyone about it. It's all I talk about these days. Is just get the book, social media, get the book.
I swear, like, I'm such a big fan of the book and of Ted that it sounds like salesy, but literally it's like the guide. It's like the go-to thing. Like, I'm very, very excited about it. So we're trying to get this thing published.
Yeah, so just support it. And if you're a publisher by any chance,
hit us up, please. William Shewfelt.
How can people find you?
So for me, it's at William Shewfelt, SHEWFELT on Instagram. I've got the Will to Win podcast. I'm on YouTube. Dr. Ted Naiman. So for him, he's huge on Twitter. And I think that's just Ted Naiman, Naiman. And then the book is on thepediet.com.
Awesome.
Wow.
Get it. I'm telling you, give it to your friends and family, even if you already know this stuff, or just spread the word. So thank you so much, William. You got anything?
Thank you, William. That was freaking fantastic. I can't wait to go work out right now.
Yeah, let's do it.
Love it.
I got basketball. Let's go.
Let's do it.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you, guys.